If you're listening to this podcast, there's a good chance that you're a hunter or you just enjoy the great outdoors. Now's the time to step up. There have been countless efforts to vilify hunters, denounce the legitimacy of the science-based wildlife management model. There's no science to this stance, and it is solely emotionally charged. We don't want to see what happened with the grizzly hunt replay itself again with the remaining large carnivores and big game species. It's a slippery slope, folks. We need to stand together. Now is the time for hunters to be united across all organizations and show our combined support. Please go to wildsheepsociety.com/act now and follow the steps. It doesn't take much time and it will help save the future of hunting. This applies to residents and non-residents alike. Please, let's use our voice and be heard. On with the show, folks. This is episode 34 of the Wilderness Locals podcast. On this episode, I have Nolan Osborne from the Journal of Mountain Hunting. This podcast is brought to you by Kifaru International, the toughest hunting gear on the planet, bar none. Frontiersman gear, high quality, completely custom handmade knives made in the heart of the Peace Country. And as always, we're brought to you by Just Shooting Arrows, BC's premier archery shop. So I don't know how many of these things, if you've listened to them or not, basically they're just like kind of a free form thing. And kind of the idea behind it was to sort of connect people that are at different skill levels and in different disciplines and that kind of thing, just through story. Just because I was getting tired of listening to a lot of the big popular podcasts where it's a lot of chest beating, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And what you guys do at Journal is it's awesome, right? You guys tell the story and guys get an understanding of how hard some of the stuff you're doing, right? So, guys that are back east, maybe only hunting whitetails or something, they it's like they're in on the experience a little bit, listening to you guys talk about winter goats and everything else. So I think I definitely drew some inspiration from you guys for sure.
Nice. Well, that's great to hear. I mean, Yankee really did most of, he's done most of the stuff with the Journal, getting it off the ground and stuff. And he put in all the hard work over the years, and I just kind of picked up where he left off on it. But I think it's great, dude. I have listened to some of them, and it's nice. I certainly try to, when I'm doing our podcast, I try to not just sort of rotate the same kinds of things you often hear on podcasts, right? And a lot of it I find is kind of more industry focused. Yeah. And obviously, if you're a media company or whatever, you do need to do that kind of stuff, and sometimes that's really interesting conversations as well. But yeah, I do find my own personal interest is more just kind of connecting people's stories and, hearing what other people do in the hunting space, as opposed to purely kind of hey, what are you selling? What product are you making kind of thing?
Totally. And you guys at Journal do it really, really tastefully too. Here's the ads at the front end, let's go. And then it's hey, we're bringing on a sponsor. Let's talk to them and let's pick apart their line and let's find out what makes this thing tick. It's I listened to, I think it was Yankee had the dude from Beyond on. Actually, it might have been both you guys.
No, it would have been Adam. Yeah.
Yeah. But dude, it was so good. I was you kind of go into those things with a little bit of an eye roll, right?
For sure.
Whatever. It's this guy's paying us and we're going to have him on. But it's when the conversation starts rolling and it's storytelling and it's honest and it's this is why we make this stuff and this is what it's for. And this is, these are the bases we're trying to cover with it. You're okay, cool. I can get behind this, I love that. I love the transparency.
Yeah. I feel you kind of have to be transparent, right? In our case, we rely on our audience and viewer numbers and stuff like that, obviously, to sell advertising for our sponsors. Effectively, we're like a radio station in that sense. So, I think something that definitely Adam has always had at the forefront of his mind, and then me as well, is you want to be I was going to say authentic, but that's like the cheesiest shit ever. Not authentic, but you want to be like honest, right? And try and be transparent about stuff, because at the end of the day, like if we don't have listeners, we don't have sponsors either.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, at the frequency that you guys put those things out, you definitely probably need some help along the way, right?
Yeah. Oh, dude, I don't know about that. You're cranking them out like crazy. I'm not going to lie. There's sometimes when I see your story and it's like this person, that person, this person, I'm like, holy fuck, I need to step my shit up, because this is actually my job.
Yeah. I'm a crazy person though.
Yeah. That's cool.
So, cool, man. I mean, so basically how I normally start this thing is I say, who are you? What do you do? And how did you get started hunting? And I mean, I think a lot of people will figure it out just from us chatting there. It's Nolan from Journal of Mountain Hunting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is, you know what, dude, I've never been on this side of it. So
cool.
It's a little different, but yeah, my name's Nolan. I'm a hunting guide in Northern BC. I am also do the bulk of the Beyond the Kill podcast with the Journal of Mountain Hunting. And then I guess technically my role there is managing editor, but some video production stuff as well, and loosely. And yeah, kind of just whatever day-to-day stuff needs to happen with the journal that's what's up. That's
awesome. How did you get into hunting? Like, how did you end up north? And for our audience that maybe hasn't gone way back on the journal and gone through the journey of Nolan becoming a horse guide, it's a long story, and it's worth going back and listening to all the bits and pieces that you've shared over the years there.
Yeah, I think we probably had one specifically around it, but I mean, I guess to try and shorten it up, I grew up in Ontario. I grew up about an hour north of Toronto, Ontario. Didn't really have any exposure to hunting, not much exposure to fishing growing up. It was fairly in a fairly outdoors family, but more sports oriented. So I spent the bulk of my youth skiing, mountain biking, and skateboarding a bunch, and kind of that was really my focus growing up. Spent a bunch of time outdoors. I lived in a small town, village, whatever, like 4,000 people. So kind of woods in your backyard sort of deal, but nothing like what I've experienced out west. And then I think when I was maybe 15 or 16, my uncle on my mom's side, two of my uncles on my mom's side hunted and had since they were like 10 or 11 years old, I think. And my one uncle didn't have kids and just said, hey, I'd like to kind of show you what I'm into, deer hunting and stuff like that. It's what I've always been into. Your parents are cool with it. If you're interested, I'll take you out and just kind of, show you the ropes and see if you want to get into it. And if you're not interested, that's totally fine too. And I really didn't, like I said, have any exposure to hunting at that point. I mean, I'd eaten lots of moose and venison at Thanksgiving and Easter and stuff like that. Because my uncles hunted, but outside of that, didn't really know anything about it. And so I jumped on the opportunity and basically was hooked.
Yeah. I think for a lot of guys, it's like you get your first exposure and the needle is deep in the vein right out of the gate.
Oh yeah, dude. I was always really interested in the outdoors and nature. And when my folks always used to, kind of once a week or once every couple of weeks, they'd let us rent a movie from this place called Bandito Video. It was local. And yeah, so, I have 3 siblings and we'd always be kind of arguing, 2 brothers and 1 sister arguing on what we could rent. And they kind of would say, you can rent one movie for you guys and we'll rent one for ourselves. And it was usually Star Wars, the original Star Wars trilogy for my brothers and I. But I would always be trying to hustle some like National Geographic animal films and stuff, documentaries in there too. And so that was always kind of an interest to me. So yeah, when I had that opportunity, I just took it and yeah, it was like you said, I mean, it was just it was this whole world that I'd never experienced, and it was totally fascinating to me. And I was, the first time out, I never saw a deer, but yeah, the rest is history, I guess.
Nice. So, how long after that did you kind of start striking out on your own?
Ooh, that was probably, my uncle really mentored me. I would say until I moved out west, and then continued to a little bit when I was out here. But I moved out here when I was 23. So I started kind of hanging around hunting camp with him and his buddies when I was maybe 15 or like 16, 17. And then when I was 18, was able to be fully licensed. And then one of my best friends, his family also hunted. And so his older brother and dad really took me under their wing as well. And I ended up working for a number of years, landscaping and stuff for his older brother. And yeah, he became one of my best hunting partners. And I mean, he phones me almost every day when he's driving home from work and BS about hunting and rifles and all that.
That's awesome. Yeah. So then what brought you out west? Was it adventure? I often hear it's chasing a girl when I ask that.
No, I actually the opposite. I kind of was at this point in my life where I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. Or maybe that's not fair. I went to school for commercial photography and worked as an assistant photographer and some photography gigs and stuff in Toronto for a year after college. During that time, I got offered a job by my buddy's other older brother. So same buddy, but middle brother, who offered me a job as a research technician. He was doing his master's and then PhD in fisheries research. He was researching salmon in the Great Lakes of Ontario. And we duck hunted a bunch together. He needed a research tech, and he knew that I had a lot of experience in, just like shittier weather and long days and stuff like that. And he knew I was good to be in the field with. And so he kind of pushed me to become his research assistant. And I did that for a year, I think like 6 months for him and then 6 months for another master's student after my first contract came up. And then that's really what kicked me into feeling like I needed to do something in the outdoor space for a career. I knew that was really what I loved. And it seemed like, I was living in Toronto at the time, and I was always taking any opportunity I had to be out of the city, which I guess is maybe ironic because I now live in a city again. But so that kind of pushed it. And I was, I think I was maybe 22 at the time. My sister lived in Vancouver. I'd always loved BC. Like I grew up skiing and had skied out west a decent amount and loved the mountains. And I just kind of hit this point where I was like, you know what, I want to become a hunting guide. And if I want to do that, there's no better place to do it than Western Canada. So packed up my truck and drove out west, and yeah, that was it.
What so like getting into guiding, what knowledge did you have about that? Like
none.
You weren't like reading old 1950s romantic hunting books or anything?
No, like I had no exposure to that community. I mean, my uncle, despite being a lifelong hunter, really wasn't like, he didn't really know a lot about Western hunting and was just never the guy to be like, hey, I'm going to pay a bunch of money to go on a guided hunt. He was kind of like, well, I got great whitetail hunting and duck hunting at my back door. And certainly when he was younger, flying moose trips in Northern Ontario and stuff. So I had no exposure to it. I didn't know anyone that guided. I didn't know anyone that really did any kind of Western hunting. So.
Wow. So so you get to BC, you set out to become a guide. What do the first steps look like? How does somebody even start diving into that?
I mean, in my case, I just kind of started cold calling outfitters and emailing people. And that didn't really pan out for me. The first year, I mean, I had a couple opportunities fall through with different outfitters, and I get it in a sense. Like, you get some kid who's calling you up and saying, hey, I want to come work and I'm willing to do whatever it takes, but they have no experience with horses, no experience with hunting in the mountains. I mean, at that point, I don't even really think I knew what a stone sheep was. I'd certainly never seen anything like that, never seen a grizzly bear. So yeah, that's kind of the first year I was in BC. that was basically what I was trying to do, is make connections, and it didn't really pan out. And then I actually met Adam through the Journal of Mountain Hunting. I was aware when he first started it in 2014. I'd come across it and talked to him a bunch. And then when I was back in Vancouver, I was living on Vancouver Island at the time. And when I was in Vancouver for Christmas to spend Christmas with my sister, I knew Yonki at the time was in North Van. So I'd fired him a message and said, hey, I'm going to be back for 10 days around Christmas. Do you want to meet up for a beer? So we grabbed some beers, and, he just kind of said at that point I was blacktail hunting a ton on the island. I was doing masonry, and I had a pretty flexible schedule. My boss had just got into hunting as well.
Cool.
So lots of times we would, be like shitty weather days in November on the island. We'd skip work in the afternoon and just go deer hunting. And so Yonki was kind of like, look, dude, it seems like you're hunting like 3-4 days a week. Like, what do you do for work? And I told him, well, currently I'm doing masonry, but, really I want to jump into becoming a guide eventually. And I'm trying to find a job as a wrangler. And then he said, hey, you should come down to the sheep show. And I had no idea what the sheep show was. I'd never heard of the Wild Sheep Foundation. And yeah, he was like, well, it's in 2 weeks. And I asked him how much it was. And he told me, and I was like, man, I can't, I just moved out here. I didn't even have, at that point, I maybe had steady work for like 5 months or something. And it was like, look, dude, I can't afford to throw down like $1,500 US on a show or whatever. So anyways, he just said, look, if you want to, if you can make it down there, I'll put you up in my hotel room for free. And, so I actually ended up borrowing some money from my folks, cause I was like flat broke. Nice. And, made some connections. And then I ended up meeting the outfitter that I still work for now.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. I was just going to, kind of derail us a bit and, go back to the like first year or so in BC. How was the I don't know the word, the evolution in your hunting style from coming from back east to BC chasing blacktail?
You know what? I got lucky really. Like the first day I went not the first day I went blacktail hunting, but the first blacktail hunting trip I went on, I ended up shooting a buck. And so I kind of, naively, I was like, okay, like I get it. You just, you kind of get up into a clear cut area, glass some stuff, a buck walks out, you shoot it. Which I now know to be not the case usually, but, so I don't know. I really didn't know anything at the time. Right. And I think to me, it was just such a unique experience to have that much access to places to hunt. I mean, Southern Ontario is, it's pretty much all landlocked by private land. And you do have some, kind of public land or, excuse me. Yeah. Like crown land, ministry land. But, often where I grew up, like that's all mixed use shared stuff. So like there'd be times I'd be sitting in a tree stand and, an ATVer would go by and 5 minutes later you'd see a dog walker or a couple dog walkers and then a dirt bike and then some people mountain biking and they were all really small plots of land too, right? Like you're looking at kind of a mixed replanted hardwood pine forest that might be 150 acres and it's bordered on all sides by like farm or country roads. So, just to have that ability to like kind of hit long roads on the North Island and go explore places. I think at that point, that was as much of an excitement as it was actually trying to figure out how to hunt as well. And then obviously, the island's got a ton of black bears. So it was really easy to just jump into black bear hunting out there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I always, whenever I hear guys talk about, I got into hunting blacktails, and then you ask them and there's often a big, deep sigh. It's like either guys nail it out of the gate or it's like that. Yeah, I'm on year 4. Still trying.
No, I mean, I had a fair bit of success, but really it was like I had a ton of time too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at that point I was in a relationship with my now fiance, but she was living in Vancouver and I was living on the island. So we didn't see each other all the time, kind of every other weekend type deal. So I had a ton of time to get out and I really did hit it probably for a while there, like 4 or 5 nights a week. And and had a couple local spots that really, they weren't great, but it was kind of like, if you just did it enough, eventually you'd walk into a buck. So
yeah,
had some luck there, but
that's awesome. So we'll get back to the story a bit here. I just had to ask about the blacktail stuff. Blacktails are kind of the bane of my existence. I love chasing those things, man. They're so fun, but it's
tough, dude.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like every year I'm like, oh, do I want to carve out time? Because it takes away from, maybe more adventure rich hunts. But they're so tough. And it's like, I feel like if you can get in on blacktail regularly, you're the skill set that you develop, especially with a bow. It's like, I mean, you're a sneaky dude if you're getting in on them.
Oh, totally. And that was actually kind of an interesting learning experience for me, because I'd never done much still hunting. Mm-hmm. Most of the hunting I'd done in Ontario for deer was sitting in tree stands, and then a little bit of walking around or pushing swamps or something, but primarily sitting in tree stands. So learning how to still hunt, like blacktails, I think taught me a lot about moving through the woods and still hunting and stuff. And I'm definitely not an expert. Like, you couldn't pay me enough money to guide them, because it would be a disaster.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty cool. Like going from a place of regularly busting does at where I couldn't see them, I'd be kind of still hunting through these deer trails and stuff. And you'd see their ass take off through the bush, but usually you just hear them bounding away, to getting to a point where I could actually walk up on them at like 10 or 15 yards, mm-hmm. and have them kind of slowly stand out of their bed and look at me and walk away. Was really, it took a long time and a lot of patience to get there, but that was, pretty educational, I found.
Yeah, for sure. They're tough, man. They're tough. It's one of those things where I wonder too if it's because it's one of those species where guys are like, yeah, I'll chase them after work because they're close to home. Like guys that put their undivided attention into them. I wonder if they find success or not.
Yeah, you know what? I think. And maybe I'm out of pocket saying this, but I do really think like mature blacktail bucks are probably the hardest species, the hardest thing to be successful on in British Columbia. And like you said, right, people who can do that consistently, like that's just a whole nother level. I've got the utmost respect for them.
Yeah, me too, for sure. Some of those old timers around here or around me in the Chilliwack Valley that have some of those big guys on their wall, it kind of blows my mind.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So first season up north, what does that look like?
Yeah, that was a bit of a rodeo, literally. So I got hired on as a wrangler, went up to the Yukon, and I didn't know like literally anything. I mean, I think the first night we got into camp, it was myself and another guide, Jared Christen. He's actually from Chilliwack, but lives up north now. And anyway, so it was just the two of us, and the Freightliner came into camp with like 32 horses or something on it. And he says to me, "Hey, I'm going to go into the back of the liner, and I'll walk through and put halters in the horses, and I'll take them out the kind of the side door up near the front. And if you just take them into the corral, take the halter, put bells and hobbles on, and take the halters off." And I looked at Jared. And this is like 3 a.m, and I looked at Jared and I said, "Yeah, sure. What are hobbles, Jared?" And he just had this look on his face like, "Oh shit, this is my wrangler for the season." So yeah, I was definitely out of my element. I had no idea what I was doing.
That's awesome. I love it.
And ended up ending my season at the end of August. I got into a horse wreck and shattered my humerus.
That's not awesome.
No, it wasn't. But
that sucks.
Yeah, it was. You know what? It's. I don't know. I think in some ways, I guess it was a good experience. I mean, it gave me some perspective as to like how things can go wrong in the mountains and what it actually looks like, I guess, like when you have an injury in a place like that, to get out of there. So, yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. So that first season, did you do any hunting for yourself up there?
No. I mean, that's a kind of It's a pretty common question, even with clients that we have, and they're always surprised to find out, like, we generally never hunt the area. It's almost never, right? Yeah. Like, it's just, and the hunts are such high dollar that it's just one of those things. It doesn't make sense. So
yeah, I get it.
Yeah, no hunting for myself up there.
Yeah, for sure. Did you get in on some fun hunts that you were guiding?
While I was wrangling up there?
Yeah,
for sure. I got in, I guess just 2 sheep hunts up there. It was pretty much the whole month of August. So two sheep hunts. The first one was successful, got a stone sheep. And that was cool, man. Like that was the first time. That's when sheep fever really set in for me. Like the first time belly crawling across a ridge and then poking out over the top and looking down like 350 yards away, seeing 2 rams in this snow patch, like cooling themselves in August. That was really wicked. It was, and up until that point, I just didn't have any experience with sheep. I'd never seen them in the flesh, and and truthfully didn't really understand the whole aura around sheep hunting. And then, the first time I saw one in a swatter, it was just kind of, everything clicked, and I'm like, all right, I get it now. Like, this is fucking cool.
Yeah. I think I said on a podcast recently, like, anytime you're out hunting or like, you chase a mule deer or something and you stumble into any sheep, like, cowies or whatever, it completely derails whatever I'm doing. Like, I'm just like, sit down, spotter, watch them. Like, that's it. That's the end of the day.
For sure. And one thing that really surprised me in the Yukon was like, I guess 2 things. One, the vastness of it. Like, I'd just never been, when I was on the island, I thought I was mountain hunting, but really I was like, driving logging roads and then hiking deactivated logging roads.
Yep.
So there was that kind of the vastness of it, and just the lack of roads. You're sitting on top of a peak at 6,000 or 7,000 feet, and you look around you as far as you can see, and you can't see anything. It's just mountains. So that was really surprising. And then also the lack of game density, really. I kind of had this vision in my head, I guess, where you'd get up on top of a mountain and there'd be all these meadows, like, and there'd be moose down here and grizzlies on the side here and caribou running everywhere and sheep everywhere. So to see kind of how much effort it took, it was even more fascinating, right? You just see these two lone rams just on the side of this mountain themselves. It was, really just something else.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. So what was your first mountain hunt then?
Like personally?
Yeah. So you have this great experience. You go up there, you see all this country, you get your hands on a stone for the first time, and you catch the sheep fever. And what happens next?
Oh man, I think after that, I started to get a little bit more serious about how I was blacktail hunting. So I did do some stuff that was a bit more of a hike in. I mean, certainly not like a backpack mountain hunt by any stretch. I think I'm really trying to rack my brains here, but I honestly think the first, like, I don't know if I really ever backpack hunted before that winter goat hunt I did, truthfully.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'd done a couple, like, nights and stuff like that, but I'd never really hunted the mainland much. I'd drawn a grizzly tag in 2016 and hunted that. And then obviously, like, by the time I did that winter goat hunt, it was my 3rd season. My 3rd season with the, like, working as wrangling guiding, and I'd been guiding for, I guess, like 2 seasons then too. I started guiding in 2016 for moose, and then did like moose goat caribou in 2017. So I kind of got like cheat codes for it. And at the time I didn't really appreciate that, but I often think of that now, right? Like when I talk to guys who I know or I've met, and they'll sometimes reach out to me and ask about, they'll be doing their first fly-in sheep trip or something like that, and they'll have questions. And it's kind of like, it's amazing to me, and I can't really even picture it. I can't put myself in that experience, because my first exposure to mountain hunting was working for guides that had been doing it for, I don't know, 6-7 years or something like that at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of, not to say, like, by no means am I some elite expert hunter or anything like that, but I was mentored by like, professionals. So
yeah.
it was kind of cheating by the time I started to backpack hunt myself a bit, I guess.
I like that. I like I kind of had cheat codes. I often feel like that just because of like the guy that kind of mentors me, Ronnie. He's like he gets pissed off every time I say stuff like this, but he's an absolute stud. Like I remember on one of these podcasts, he called me right after I posted it. He's like, "Could you delete that?" I'm like, "It's too late." Way too late. But no, the guy is a stud, and he's accomplished everything that you could want to accomplish and more, basically. And I feel the same way. I feel like I have cheat codes because like I get into these situations and into these problems that are hard to solve. And he's at the point now where he almost won't give me the answers. He'll be like, go suffer for a while.
Yeah, for sure. That's
funny. But no, I relate to that in kind of a different way with having a mentor that's done it,
Yeah. And it's just, I just don't really know that much different. I mean, like I said, I bumbled around a bit on the island, starting out, but I think it's, partially having a mentor, and then it's just like, I also feel so fortunate because I get to hunt so much, right? And you're not learning in these small chunks. Like when you go up north wrangling and you're in that environment for 3 months straight, it's generally it's in a 90-day season, and 75 days of that you're hunting.
Yeah.
So for most people, like, I don't know what the average person like does for hunting trips a year, but if, for some people, like 2 northern trips that are 10 days a piece would be like a pretty big year for them. Right. And that's 20 days. So you just kind of, you put into this kind of fire hose of experience that, I mean, certainly in the beginning, it was like, you're just trying to keep the wheels on the bus, I think, like, and working with horses and stuff. I had no experience working with livestock. I mean, shit, I was frankly afraid of horses when I first started working with them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So I guess to go way back and answer my question, it sounds like your first like personal mountain hunting for yourself was that winter goat.
I kind of think so. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank here, but
that's okay.
I think I don't know that I did really any. I mean, I'd been on some hunts, but they were always kind of close to a truck. The first time that I think that I wasn't guiding and I spent several days out of a tent hunting and not near roads would have been probably in, like February 2018. Actually, no, you know what? In 2016, it was actually December 2015, I did a winter goat hunt. Nice. So I did one in 15 with Yonki and another guide. He was guiding for Bull and Lewis at the time, James Dorrit. And he was the one that really kind of, taught me about that kind of stuff, because neither Yonki or I had hunted goats, and I didn't know anything about that. So once again, like, that's another example of me having cheat codes.
That's awesome. So first winter goat hunt, were you on the trigger that trip?
No, I wasn't. No, Adam was he was supposed to be the shooter for that. He had 2 young, I think he had 2 young kids at the time. I mean, his boys are a little bit older now, but I think maybe his second was just born, or maybe even not yet. And he was really busy, and so didn't actually have that much time. I think we had maybe 6 days for the trip. Yeah. And I just said to him, like, hey man, you can be first up to bat. Like, I've got all the time in the world. I'm young. I don't have kids. I'll make it happen for myself at some point. So, and we weren't successful on that one. We, got into a bunch of goats, and he was actually trying to bow hunt them at the time. So,
yikes.
Yeah. Pretty gnarly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, we're going on a archery goat hunt in August, but it's in August. It's not in the winter.
For sure. For sure.
I think it's a little different. One of my buddies called me up not longer. He's like, "Hey, winter goats." I was like, "No." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "No, no, I'm not doing it. And he's like, why not? I'm like, go watch Towing the Line. It's not for me. It's a solid.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't know. I know you talked to Jeff. I guess you know a bit about that, and it's, they're good hunts, but it's kind of one of those things. Like when they're successful, I think it's probably one of the most gratifying hunts that I've ever done because of the work you put into it. I imagine I've never ran a marathon, but I imagine it's something like that, you know, where it's like the actual in the experience itself, it's not as much fun. And then you kind of have this experience. Like I've done a number of them now. I don't know off the top of my head, maybe 4 or 5. But you kind of have this thing where you forget about it, right? Like at this time of the year, or, you know, October comes around or something, and you're like, yeah, you know, that'd be a great thing to do. And then you get in there and hiking in, like, you know, when I went in 2020 in February, I'd forgotten how miserable that hike in was. And it really just kind of, you know, even the first hour, like you just want to quit every step. I'm like, why the fuck am I here? Like I could be, I don't know, on a beach somewhere doing anything.
Yeah. I can't remember who said it, but somebody was talking about, I think they were specifically talking about bow hunting, but I think it applies to all facets of hunting. It's like, you have to have a short-term memory to accomplish your goals in hunting.
I can see that. Yeah.
You have to have a crappy short-term memory, rather. Like you have to be able to forget stuff, you know, miss a shot, forget it, keep going. Right. Like,
yeah, for sure.
It sounds like that's what that winter goat thing's like. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Jeff talks about winter goats. Like it's no big deal though. The guy's a stud. It's just like, it's just not for me. All of my hunting success just comes from, like volume and just being stubborn, like
for sure,
not from skill.
Right. I mean, I feel the same way, dude. Yeah. You just kind of power through it. And, but I mean, you know, over time, I do feel like, that's something that has started to click more. You know, it's certainly earlier on when I was guiding, like I battled with like imposter syndrome a lot, just being like, fuck man, like how am I guiding a hunt that's this expensive? Or, you know, do I really know what I'm doing? Am I making the right decisions? Is the client going to think that I'm making the right decisions? All of that kind of stuff. And then, you know, with experience in that, it's a little easier. But did you talk to Jeff after this past winter goat hunt? Or
yeah, I think I did. I think it was after, or maybe, yeah.
He's definitely changed his tune a bit about them. He's like, I will, I'll send you guys avalanche updates from a beach drinking pina coladas. They had a pretty bad one last go.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, maybe I talked to him before. I'd have to go back and listen to it. You know, I talked to Jeff offline quite a bit. So
for sure.
These things all kind of get jumbled up together. I think on one of them, I was talking about a conversation I had offline that I thought everybody else had heard, but they hadn't.
Oh, for sure. Well, and dude, like you do so many podcasts a week too. I'm sure they start to blur a bit.
Yeah, they're fun. I love it. Yeah. So fun. So kind of from there, what's sort of been your favorite BC hunt to date?
Man, that's hard to say, right? Because like I really just love being in the mountains.
It's totally a loaded question.
Yeah, absolutely. As I've gotten older, I've really realized that I just really, really value time spent in the mountains. You know, a mix of kind of that solitude and the time you get for contemplation about everything else in life. And then obviously the challenge of hunting as well. So I really do love it all. I mean, spring bears, I get pretty excited about bear hunting every spring. I do truly love guiding. Like, I mean, hard to say because I'm not in this position, but I do feel like if I won the lottery, I would still guide.
Yeah.
If I didn't need the money, because I just get a lot out of it. I think it's awesome to be able to, you know, to be able to share those kinds of experience with your clients. And then also, for a lot of our clients, especially our sheep clients, it's a huge chunk of money that they're spending on this hunt. And in a lot of cases, they've saved up for 20, 30 years, or maybe they've, dreamed about it since they were kids. Like I've guided 6-year-old men who've said that, I knew I wanted to do a sheep hunt when I read Jack O'Connor when I was 8 years old. So to be able to kind of be there and guide them through that experience and then share that success with them, I do really feel is an honor. So I get a ton out of that. And then I'm just kind of starting to get the mule deer bug a bit. Like I have such limited experience hunting mule deer, but
so fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, it's almost like the poor person's sheep hunt to an extent, right? Like you don't need float planes and all of that kind of stuff, but you can still hike. So I've done a couple of backpack sheep trips, backpack mule deer trips in October. And that's been a blast. I mean, I've only ever shot one muley. I'm like the world's worst deer hunter, at least as far as like antlers and score goes. But yeah. And then I love goats. Like goat hunting is a blast to me. I really enjoy sheep hunting too, but especially when you're guiding them, it's a lot of pressure. You get someone who paid like 50,000+ US and you're sitting there trying to count age rings with a shaking spotter in the wind. And you just can't make that mistake. I mean, as a resident, I think there's probably some pressure as well. There's probably a lot of pressure, but as a resident, if you end up killing a 7-year-old ram that doesn't break the nose, you might get a fine, but usually they're probably just going to confiscate it from you. And it sucks. And I think it's probably embarrassing and kind of a bruised ego. But in my case, like that's kind of the end of my sheep guiding career. If I get one taken away, like that's, my boss has to refund someone like basically 85,000 Canadian. So,
jeez.
Yeah, it's no bueno.
Yeah, no good. You don't want that. I mean, I think most responsible sheep folks are making sure they're well over the limit before they squeeze one off.
Yeah, I think so for the most part. I guess I wasn't trying to suggest that they're not doing that. It's more just that there's an added element of kind of responsibility and pressure when it comes to guiding the sheep. So I enjoy that, but goat hunting I find to be just a blast. Like it's a lot of work physically, but really low pressure and just a lot of fun, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you kind of said you're starting to get the mule deer bug, hey?
A little bit, yeah.
I saw your guys' latest film.
Yeah, The Wind and the Wolves.
Yeah, awesome. With Ben there at Arcadia, right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
That's awesome country. I love that area.
Oh, dude, Ben's area is like some of the most beautiful country that I've spent time in southern BC for sure. I mean, that's pretty hard to top northern BC, but yeah, Arcadia is some awesome country, and I've gotten to know Ben fairly well over the years. I've guided a few bear hunts at his place, kind of here and there, and yeah, it's been an absolute blast. And also, I mean, I think anytime you get the opportunity to spend time hunting with a guy like that's got that much experience, to me it's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to hear his story because he's a young guy too, right? And it seems like he knows what he's doing. Yeah,
for sure. You should get him on here, man.
Yeah, I will.
I'm sure he'd be happy to.
I'll ping him after this. So, so we got the mule deer bug going now too, on top of the sheep bug. So, when's the first stone sheep going down?
Oof, that's a good question.
That's $1 million. That's not, what is that, like a $50,000 question, or maybe $60 question for us?
Yeah, that's right. I don't know, man. I truly, I actually had the opportunity to hunt sheep for myself. Last year, the outfitter gave me the opportunity to go try and cut a tag for myself. And I was going to take that. And I was super excited. I mean, with COVID last year, we didn't have any US clients, and we had a pretty light season for Canadian clients as well. Mm-hmm. So kind of as a thank you to all of us, he kind of unleashed the crew and let them hunt in the area. But, there's only 2 of us that are BC residents. So I kind of told him like, I really wasn't interested in anything other than stone sheep, and he was gracious enough to kind of give me the green light on that. And then last minute, I think it was like the day before I was supposed to take off on my own, he gave me the opportunity to take another sheep hunter, a guy who had come in for 20 days at the start of the season there in early August. And we'd had terrible weather, just rain and snow and high winds and stuff. And they had it even worse in the chunk of mountains they were in. So they never got onto any sheep. And I kind of, with COVID and loss of money and stuff like that, I figured pretty hard to bitch about not making money when you're turning down money. So,
yep.
And at the end of the day, man, like, even though it's not one for yourself, like I said, I mean, I think there's just, I don't know. I think in that situation, is especially with that client and that ram, I don't think if I had a shot that one for myself, which we went to the same area, I would have gone for myself. I just don't think it could have meant as much to me as it did to him.
Yeah.
And not to say that it would be meaningless or anything like that. I mean, I'd love to get the opportunity at some point, but it's also like you're getting paid to hunt sheep either way. So, well, sorry, I wouldn't have been getting paid if I was hunting myself, but as a guide you are. So,
yeah. That kind of speaks to something. I think when I had Jim Shockey on, I think he was saying, like, I think it was him. I don't know. Somebody on here recently was talking about how the adventure trumps the actual taking of an animal most of the time, right? And I think you're in a unique position, like being a young guy that's out there experiencing adventure. You're guiding, you're going on all these cool hunts, and it's not like you're seeing them like third hand or second hand, or it's not like watching them on YouTube or something. It's like you're actually there, and you're in many ways guiding. You're kind of steering the ship, right? It's like,
oh, absolutely.
It's like you're basically the hunter, except for squeezing the trigger a lot of the time, right?
And I mean,
that's cool.
I would say like it depends on the client, but generally speaking, like, you do call all the shots, right? Like, you plan the stock, you find the animal, you age the animal.
Yeah.
You range it, like you do all that, you cape it, you pack it out. And, and I mean, I think that's why you do hear guides like, kind of loosely say, like, they might say like, oh, I killed a ram, killed this ram here, or I killed a goat and a moose and stuff. And obviously they didn't kill it themselves, but yeah, you do everything but squeeze the trigger. And I don't know if maybe this might not land well with some of the audience, but I almost feel sometimes when I hunt for myself, it can be a little bit anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Because of the finality of it, not because I don't appreciate the experience, but it's almost like when I'm guiding, right? Like if we're on a moose caribou goat combo and we get a goat, then it's like, okay, cool, moose is next. Then you get, if you get all three, you're like, okay, sweet, next client's coming in, right? And it's like it just doesn't stop. Whereas when you punch a tag for yourself, you're usually like, okay, well, that's the end of the hunt. Like, I guess I'm going home and kind of back to my daily routine of life and all that kind of stuff, and then thinking about the next one. So
yeah,
I think guiding is like, you do get that really unique opportunity.
Yeah. And I often wonder about like guys that guide for a living, and they're living out these adventures that many of us want to be on year in and year out. I often wonder if at some point it turns into real work where they're not like, does the romance go away?
Hard to say. I mean, for some people it definitely does, but I heard when I first got into this, like, you'd be at a gun shop or something, and someone would see you'd have like an outfitter's hat on, or maybe like a vest or something that had the outfitter's logo, and they'd start talking to you about it, and they'd say, oh, well, I guided a bit when I was younger, but it started to ruin it for me. And I always take that with a grain of salt, and I think a lot of it comes down to perspective. And for me, like, I really just do value time in the mountains. So I do think guiding is the greatest job you can have. It's certainly the hardest I've ever worked, hands down. And I've had some of my lowest moments guiding, and there's days where you just, there's days where you're not feeling great and everything hurts, and you still, you got to get up at 5:30 or 5 a.m. and kind of make things happen. And you have to be, you really, as a guide, I think you want to be able to give the same amount of energy to the hunt and the client. The very first day of the season is the very last day of the season. So
yeah,
something that comes with pacing yourself too. But I don't know. I don't think it'll get old for me. I hope it won't. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's the answer that says that it won't get old when you're doing it for those reasons, right?
Yeah. It's funny. Like the first time I went down to the sheep show when I was trying to get a job as a wrangler, I walked into the Stone Mountain Safaris booth, and Leaf, the outfitter at the time, was busy with the clients. So I started talking to, I guess, one of his head guides who was kind of helping him run the booth at the time, and started chatting with him, and he just kind of asked me a bit about myself, and I was telling him I was trying to get into it, and it just, I don't remember who the guy was, but it burned into my memory, and he said something like, it's the greatest job in the world, but it will ruin you. And it didn't really say anything else, and it didn't click with me. And now, I mean, shit, especially with this last year with COVID and, not seeing family and restrictions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's true, man. Like it's kind of this weird feeling where it's like nothing else feels the same.
Yeah.
There's just this unbridled sort of freedom that you get when you're in the middle of nowhere, and that there's no road within 100 kilometers from you, and you kind of like you said, like you're controlling the hunt. You wake up in the morning and you're basically like, all right, well, once the horses are in, like, it's my decision. We can go anywhere. I can decide to pick up camp and go ride 40 kilometers north, south, east, west, whatever, and it's all fair game. Like that amount of freedom is so, I guess, unique in some ways, but also just so pure, and I don't even know how to put words to it. It's an incredible feeling, and it does kind of ruin you for a lot of other stuff. I'm not gonna lie. I'm sure nobody has pity for me, but
yeah. So you guys often end your podcast with a couple questions, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What are the questions so everybody knows? I can't remember.
Oh God, yeah. So, I mean, kind of switched it up a little bit, but usually, and this is something that I always ask clients that I'm in camp with. At some point in the hunt, I usually ask them, if you could hunt one species for the rest of your life, what would it be? And then if you could only do one last hunt, and then you basically like one last hunt, and that's it.
Hang them up.
What would it be? Yeah, exactly.
All right, Nolan.
Oof. If I could only hunt one species for the rest of my life, be a toss up between sheep and goats. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's maybe sheep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe sheep.
Nice.
And if I could have one last hunt.
One last hunt. There you go.
Ooh, my answer for a long time for that, and it's probably still bears true, but I think I'd love to go back to where I used to duck hunt in Ontario, and I'd love to hunt like opening day, early season teal with a side-by-side shotgun.
Cool.
I just feel like that would be a nice feather in the cap right at the end.
Awesome. And with your uncle probably, right?
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. Cool, man. Well, that's pretty well an hour, and I love what you guys are doing over at the Journal. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your story with us here, and I look forward to see that stone sheep on the ground one day in the future.
Oof, it might be a long time, man.
That's okay. I'll keep following along until then. Not to worry. Yeah. No rush.
I think if I ever do get one myself, I don't think I'll share any pictures of it.
Yeah.
Like not on social media, but yeah.
I think there's one photo of me on social media, like, and I think I only posted it that way people knew that I actually had a face.
Yeah, that you weren't just some anamorphous blob in the internet.
Totally. I'm just not just a podcast.
For sure. Well, I appreciate you having me on, man. I would like to ask you the same question you asked me.
Oh, what species, right? If I could only have one species.
One species.
I'm going to answer both those questions simultaneously. Okay.
Yeah.
It would be mule deer in a specific place that my hunting mentor, Ronnie, grew up hunting, and he's taken me in, and kind of shared a lifetime of experience in there. And like, he's taken me through that area and, you know, shown me the ropes and told me the stories. And like, you know, it's one of those places me and him have been in the cliffs there, freezing, you know, the frozen winds whipping through, and you're like, you know, nestled up under a whoopee with like fogged up glass to your face, trying to pick mule deer out of these like, I don't know, canyons, hoodoos, whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're far enough away from our from the animals that we're having these conversations. He's like, oh yeah, you know, and he's 10 years older than me. He's going, yeah, when I was, you know, whatever, 22, I shot a mule deer here, and it slid down this hill, and it took 2 days to get it back up the mountain. And like, it's just, it's one of those places for me that's so special. You know, it's like, I think about that hunt, and it almost chokes me up. Not to sound like hyper emotional about it or anything, but it's like, it's super meaningful to me. And it's like, it's one of those things that I've gained so much knowledge of hunting, and the experience is so rich for me, because of who I was there with. And yeah. If I had one species to hunt and one last hunt that I could do and then hang them up, it would be that hunt. 100%.
Right on. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. He's actually Ronnie, the guy I'm talking about. He's a guy that you guys need to have on Journal, because if you could get him going, that he's got stories, man.
Mail him some whiskey first, maybe.
I don't think he drinks. I think he's
okay. Yeah, fair enough.
I think he's a square like me. I think he's but you could get him going. You could get him going for sure. But he's I'll send you some photos once we're offline, and you'll be like, whoa, he's going to be pissed I said that. Sorry, Ronnie.
For sure. Yeah, that's awesome.
Right on, Nolan. Thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review. If you want to support the podcast, please check out the gear on our website at www.wildernesslocals.net.